Shavua Tov Mavarach. This is Rabbi Kovacs, and Mishnah Yomi is continuing in the first chapter of Sukkah and Mishnah Gimel. We've been talking about the Sechach. We had the case yesterday of the two-level, split-level Sukkah, and if the Sechach is kosher for one, it's not going to be kosher as a floor for the upper floor. So we continue talking about the Sechach and what makes a good Sukkah. So Mishnah Gimel, Peras Alea Sodin Mipnei Chama. They spread a sheet on top of the Sechach because of the sun, either to increase the shade for the people in the sukkah, or so the Sechach doesn't dry up and then, get, all dried and the leaves will fall off and everything. O tachteya mipnei nishar, or you put a sheet under the Sechach, but over the people because of the falling leaves. Once the Sechach gets dry, some of the leaves are going to fall off. You're going to get schmutz in the soup. O sheperes al gabei kinov, or he spreads a sheet over the four-post bed. Now, this is talking about someone who's sleeping in the sukkah. They schlepped their bed into the sukkah, and it's a four-post bed. If you put a sheet over it, you've created an ohel. So in all these cases, psula, you have a problem. You're making an ohel, and now you're dwelling in an ohel, a tent, which is considered a temporary structure, but it's not a sukkah. Aval, but poresu al gabe naklite amita. You could put a sheet over the two posts of a bed. Now, this is talking about a bed that has sort of a little canopy, but it's sort of like one of those old-fashioned tents that's shaped like a triangle, and the top of it is very small, less than tefach in width, so that's not considered an ohel at all. It's basically just a thin cord with a sheet coming down on both sides, and it's, protects you from the bugs, but it doesn't make an ohel. So even though he's under this sheet, this sort of tent, like bed, he's still really under the sukkah, not under an ohel, so he'd be okay. Onto Dalit. Hidla aleha et a gefen. He trained a grapevine over the structure, ve'et a dalat, or a gourd, ve'et a kisom, or ivy, v'sikech al gaba, and then he added Sechach on top of this, psula. This is not valid because a large portion of your Sechach is this plant material, this vine material, which is connected to the ground. Connected to the ground is mechubar lekarka, and it's not valid as Sechach. Im hayasiku charbe mehen, if the Sechach itself, the separate Sechach that's not attached to the ground, is much more than the vines. The Bartanura says there's so much kosher Sechach you don't even see the vines, and nir la'ayin, so it's basically it's bottled there. O shikitzatzon, or you cut the vines off, kishera. It's still a kosher sukkah. Now, the Bartner brings up that you could cut the vines from the ground even after you've trained them on top of your sukkah structure and mix them with other Sechach, but you're going to have to pick them up off the roof and put them down again because we have an issue of taseh v'lo asui. You make it, it doesn't become made afterwards. This is learned out in the Gemara from a pasuk, Hagasukot taseh. You will make the festival of Sukkot, of the booths. So we learn that in the Gemara, Taseh v'lo asui. You have to make the sukkah, not that it becomes made after the fact. So if somebody would put the vines as his Sechach, and then mechubar lekarka, which is puzzle Sechach, and then they cut them off after and just leave it like that, they're not making a sukkah. The sukkah is becoming made after the structure is already there with the covering already there. The Mishnah continues, Zeyaklal. This is the general rule about Sechach. Kol shu mekabel tuma, any item that can be ritually contaminated, like a kli, ve'ein gidula min haaretz, or it doesn't grow out of the ground, ein misachin bo, you can't use it as Sechach. So there are certain things that do grow from the ground, but are mekabel tuma, like you made a leather shoe, or anything leather, anything hide related, even though it's not a kli, would be pasal Sechach, or like a shoe or a garment, that, something that is a kli and is now makabel tuma, even though it's made out of fabric or flax that grows out of the ground. And the Mishnah gives you the contrary case, v'kol davar she'eno makabel tuma, things that do not become ritually contaminated, they're not a kli, v'gedulam min haaretz, and they grow out of the ground, misachin bo, that can be valid for Sechach. So there are things like metal and clay that, they're from the ground, but they don't grow out of the ground, so the poskim say that's also not valid. In the Gemara, it's Daf 12, they learn this out from a pasuk. The requirements, Chagasukot ta'aselecha, make for yourselves the festival of booths. Be'aspecha, when you gather, migornecha uvmikvecha, from your threshing floor, your goren, and your yekev, your wine press. Now, it sounds like you make the festival at the time when you're gathering your produce from the threshing floor and the wine press, but the Gemara explains, Chazal say that you could take this and kind of too literally, or literally in a sense, of you use the stuff that's left over from your threshing floor and your wine press, which is, stalks of, husks and stubble and vines and wheat stalks and branches and things like this. You use the leftovers literally off the floor to use for the Sechach for your Sukkah. And these have in common that they're all things that grow out of the ground and are not mekabel tuma. Shavot of Mevrach and Sei gesund.